Hello, folks. Chris in Central Pennsylvania. My video on Donald Trump not playing around has evoked a lot of responses, most of it sympathetic to Trump's position coming from South Africa, which is interesting, but some of it really off base. And it kind of prompted me to think about this and revisit this topic.
Welcome back once again. This is Chris Report, and he assured me that since Simonstown and Boulders, folks, this is Chris Wyatt reporting from South Africa.
The United States has been very generous to South Africa and to the ANC in particular for a long time. And all we get for it is insults from Ramaphosa, the ANC taking credit for what our tax dollars buy, and constantly lied about in South Africa's media. When Trump finally says enough, suddenly the USA is hard-hearted. Successive presidents and administrations, including the previous Trump administration, gave South Africa free pass, looked the other way while it oppressed its population. Well, that may not be happening any longer. Now, folks, I'm not arguing for cutting off South Africa, but it's high past time that Washington stops letting folks whom we gift fortunes stop taking us for suckers. It's almost comical reading some of the social media comments about how the U.S. is neo-colonial, imperialist, and how U.S. forces Pretoria to do this and that. If only. If the ANC actually did Washington's bidding, there would have been no naval exercise with the Chinese and Russian forces, no exclusive economic zones in South Africa for Chinese corporations, no Lady R incident. There would have been a condemnation of Russia for the Ukraine invasion, no salty language from Cyril about vaccine apartheid, no 75% poultry import tariffs, and so on. Let's face it, any objective observer will clearly recognize that South Africa does nothing that Washington wants it to do. Let's take a few of the programs the U.S. gifts to South Africa to see just how generous the Americans have been to South Africa. PEPFAR, the president's emergency program for AIDS relief. Grace au the U.S. taxpayer, Pretoria has not had to spend over $8.1 billion. That is 150 billion rand in the fight against HIV/AIDS. Not only does the ANC not acknowledge this, but it also actively takes credit for belatedly addressing a crisis it in no small measure fueled under Thabo Mbeki. Mbeki's idiotic, thin-skinned, fragile ego led to the unnecessary premature deaths of hundreds of thousands of South Africans and the birth of at least 500,000 needlessly HIV-positive children, all of which could have been prevented. Had the United States not intervened with PEPFAR 22 years ago, the carnage in South Africa would have been far worse. The U.S. has continued its assistance for an emergency program to the tune of an annual average of over $400 million, while South Africa was supposed to gear up its own funding to cover the situation. Hasn't happened sufficiently. South Africa has the world's largest HIV population. It's the only statistic where South Africa comes first in the world. That's a sad statement. The Africa Growth and Opportunity Act. When Cyril Ramaphosa signed the expropriation without legislation bill into law on January 23, 2025, he instantly invalidated South Africa's privileged duty-free entry into the U.S. market. Whenever mention is made that Trump could suspend South Africa from AGOA benefits, the temper tantrums start flying on social media and in South Africa's press and amongst their opinionated leftist op-ed writers. We don't need your AGOA. You can't dictate to us. The U.S. needs AGOA. Deal with your own problems. Well, folks, South Africa needs AGOA. It's over $2.3 billion of two-way trade every year, which provides for hundreds of thousands of jobs in South Africa. You can't dictate to us. Washington does not dictate anything to Pretoria. If only it did, things would be a lot friendlier. Americans derive exactly zero benefits from the Africa Growth Opportunity Act. Contrary to what South Africans believe, many, we get nothing. We don't get access to your market. You guarantee us nothing. We gift this to you. It is simply a foreign policy tool to encourage African governments to rule democratically and to take care of their citizens. The winners are in Africa, not in America. And perhaps you missed it. We are dealing with our own problems, and it began in earnest on November 5th, 2024. Far from doing Washington's bidding, the ANC has long been poking the bear in the face, and that is Pretoria's prerogative, as it is Washington's prerogative to not give money to folks actively working against its national security interest and calling Americans racist at every opportunity in international fora. South Africa is a sovereign state, or so leftists and black supremacists are fond of saying anytime Washington or an American raises a question about the ANC's racist laws, its lax financial oversight, its cozy relationship with state terror sponsor Iran, or its groveling at the feet of Moscow and Beijing. Pretoria can do as it pleases within international norms, but so can Washington. Ask yourself, how long before Trump turns his attention towards South Africa? And for the leftists and black supremacists who think that South Africa can go it alone without the United States, well, good luck on that. As is per the norm, under the ANC, it will be South Africans who suffer, not the ANC. What say you, South Africa? Cheers.